We really hope everyone in a good mood, with a happy tummy, and with an open heart and open mind. And inshallah, may Allah grant rahmah to all of us tonight, inshallah. So, are we all here for the event topic 6 questions? Or some are still expecting something else? It's 6 questions, right? Okay. Alhamdulillah. Okay, so you're in the right room. Before we continue, I would like to introduce the organizer of the event. First of all, Piecemeal. Piecemeal is an organization that brings cultural, intellectual and spiritual understanding of Islam through interactive programs. A number of people, Muslim or not, have an understanding of Islam based on what they have been exposed to and a level of comprehension. Some are scholars, some are students, some come to share and some come to listen. And this event tonight, 6 questions on Islam, is a very special and unique event, as we have opened a Q&A session even before the event has started. As everyone knows here, nowadays the technology plays a very big role in our life, and most of us prefer the shortcut ways, whereby whenever we have questions, we will prefer to Google and YouTube. That is like the fastest, and we thought that is the best answer. So having said that, that's when our organizers have actually opened a session where we welcome questions from the public via social network, Facebook, Twitter, and also Instagram. And after that, we did voting for the top 6 questions. So I'm sure all of us are aware about that, right? Imam Afroz Ali always reminds us, know that if you pray for courage, Allah will not give you courage, but put you in real situations where you have the opportunity to cultivate courage. So, and again, Imam Afroz began the journey of a student of knowledge. Those studies have taken Imam Afroz from university-based academia to more traditional studies in Yemen, the United States and Mauritania. He has received licenses to teach from some of the most esteemed Islamic scholars of time. He has also traveled to Cairo, Egypt, for further studies in Islamic jurisprudence with scholars at Al-Azhar University. At the same time, Imam Afroz serves on the Seekers Guidance Management team as the Managing Director. He is also the founder and president of Al-Ghazali Centre for Islamic Sciences and Human Development, based in Sydney, Australia. Imam Afroz conducts corporate training on a range of subjects. And in 2012, Imam Afroz Ali has been selected by the Royal Islamic Strategic Studies Centre amongst the 500 most influential Muslims. And our next prominent speaker, Habib Kadzim. Habib Kadzim was born in Tarif, Hyderabad in 1960 and has a direct lineage to the Prophet Muhammad SAW. A highly respected scholar, Habib Kadzim is considered an expert in many areas of the Islamic sacred sciences, including fiqh, sirah, aqidah, and usul. Adopting a unique oratory approach, Habib Kadzim specializes in educating men and women, young and elderly, about their responsibilities toward the Creator and their obligations to others.
First of all, I just knew that I would be the moderator. It was all planned by other people, but I'm here, alhamdulillah. I didn't think that we really need moderation, but anyway, let's start this session with Imam Afroz Ali. Like it has been said, so we've gone through a whole process of selection for the questions, and we've allocated or attributed 3 questions per speaker, and we will inshallah start with the first question. Imam, the first question is, in the hustle and bustle of today's modern living, how can one pursue a balanced life with religion as the top priority?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. والحمد لله وكفى والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. Assalamu alaikum everybody. Alhamdulillah, it's just a bad adab for me to be sitting here when we have expert on my left over here who should be answering all of these questions, and we should be all sitting to listen to that. But sometimes you have to do what you have been asked by the teachers to do, so that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm simply trying to assist in getting as much clarity to some of these answers as possible. So if I can ask, how much time do I have per question? Approximately 15 minutes?
Yeah, you have approximately 15 minutes.
I'll probably need less than that. That's okay. Alhamdulillah. And again, my very special thanks and to the organizers, Habib Abdul Rahman and Habib Kadzim over here, and Sheikh Barakat. Jazakumullah khair, and really appreciate that we are here together in this venue to discuss something extremely important, many questions which are extremely important to us. In relation to the question, I am personally reading the question that it may sound like that as if balanced life seems to seek that we have this one kind of life, which is work and our social aspect, our family, etc., and on the other side, Islam. So the first thing I think that we need to understand is that balanced life is not separated from Islam. In fact, Islam provides us with the balance. That in fact, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks us in the Quran to the believers, "Udkhulu bis-silmi kafatan," that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, enter with peace, or enter into this piece of religion completely. So first and foremost, if we look at the idea of silm, it's about this idea of completeness and safety. That safety is attained through completeness. And this completeness is, if you can imagine a circle, and the circle divided into pies, and each pie is of different sizes, but those different sizes come together to fulfill the entire circle. And so we have to recognize that Islam allows us to in fact balance our lives based on a certain number of things, which is the important element, that we don't want to see balance as if it was 50% and 50%. Balancing is not achieved by half and half. So if I could also interact and ask a question, what do you think is more? 1 kilogram of wool or 1 kilogram of gold? They're same, right? But you see, I didn't ask you about the weight. I asked you what was more. So in weight they are equal, but in volume, wool is greater than gold. As you can see, that we can see balance is not about 50-50. Balance is not about equivalence in just one thing. But balance is really about mizan. And mizan has the ability to have the priorities together. So when we speak about this entire circle of different priorities, some things will require immediate priority, and some things can be left a little bit later because it's not necessarily important. And in this regard, we have to realize that our responsibility is that we are like the fulcrum of life. So if you have a seesaw, I can put different weights, and if I move the fulcrum, I still get the balance. So on one side, I can actually have 5 kilograms of the same thing and 1 kilogram of another thing on the other side, but still move the fulcrum and still balance my plank. That is essentially the nature of Islam, that we have incredible number of things that actually we have to attend to, and the idea is by the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by the facilitation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we constantly respond to Him. And in doing so, we will find balance. We don't seek that balance. We seek to respond to the qada and qadr, the divine decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in a manner that is pleasing to Him. And when you do that, you will find balance. And in this regard, if I can say, there are 3 things that you would want to focus on. Number 1, it is that you have responsibilities to fulfill. To be a human being, you have responsibilities to fulfill. And if you then understand what priorities are in front of you, then you fulfill them in a manner that I'm going to speak briefly in a second point. Why do you fulfill your responsibilities, for example, to your parents, to your children, to your workmates, to your employer, to your teachers, etc. As well, you have rights. As you have responsibilities, you also have rights. But the secret of this deen is balance is found not by seeking your rights, but by foregoing your rights. That when you forego your rights, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is on your side. And this is a secret of this deen. It is connected to the idea of servitude, which I'm going to speak about a bit later on. So, and the third, so we have the responsibilities with the rights, and the third is that we seek the best out of us. And this is the science of ihsan. That when if we look at our deen, our dunya, our world, from the eye of fiqh only, in relation to the rules of what to do and what not to do, this is actually not how you find the balance. Those simply allow us as to what you should put on the balance. Then ihsan teaches you how to move that around in order to get that balance. And the science of ihsan is the science of character building. It's the science of what we refer to as akhlaq, that we are supposed to empty from ourselves those things which are referred to as blameworthy characteristics, the madmumat, and to then fill into ourselves those things which are mahmudat, those things which are praiseworthy characteristics. In this emptying and filling, we are then able to find the balance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us as a grace, that He will give us as His mercy and compassion unto ourselves. You just let me know when I'm supposed to stop onto the first question. Afwan. Then I want to also talk about that when we look at this balance, the idea is that you're seeking your best, your excellence, because by doing so you're going to fulfill your purpose. And there is no better joy in life than you will find in fulfilling your purpose. And know that this world was never built to pursue happiness. That joy is simply a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to teach you what true happiness, what sa'ada is, and that is what you will receive in the hereafter. So this world is where you plant your seeds to see the results of the purposes you have. And the first purpose is, or literally the only purpose we have, ultimately the only, is servitude. I don't want to take time here to quote a whole number of our important and profound and the only word that we need to speak of, and that is the Quran. But I'm trying to use the Quran to explain it in as practical as possible. Because, for example, we can talk about that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said to us that He has created us and the jinn for no other reason except to worship Him. إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. But what does worship then mean? And this is what I'm trying to get to. What are some of the important things that we have to understand in a very real and practical way? And this worship is really about ubudiyah. It's about servitude. It's about serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in serving Him, we know that He is free from everything. Wallahu huwal ghaniyul hamid. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is free from anything. And it is He who is worthy of any praise. So if He is not in need of our service, then our responsibility is to serve His creation. And why do we do that? Because it fulfills our purpose, and that purpose is to seek God, is to seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we become busy in khidmah, and the secret of this deen is khidmah, is service. When you get busy in it, then you will start to get what is referred to as a taste, the taste of joy, this aspect of surur that we experience in this world. Because ultimately, we have been taught in this world that this world is about pursuit of happiness. But actually it's not about pursuit of happiness. It's pursuing Allah. He is the creator of happiness. You always pursue the creator, not the created. And when you find the creator, the merciful creator, then He will endow upon you, engulf you in happiness. And this aspect of engulfing is very important, because we also don't want to get caught up in our actions. What are we doing when we are acting? In our amal, when we are acting, what are we doing? There is a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, and he tells us that your actions will not benefit you. And the companions asked him, Ya Rasulullah, not even you? And he said, not even me. Except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will engulf me. Illa yataghammadani bi rahmatihi. That He will engulf me in His mercy. So through our actions, when we are looking to fulfill our purpose, we are actually seeking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy descends upon us, then He is the one who gives us happiness. It is in His mercy that we experience happiness. And so balancing really is about doing things in priority so that you don't miss out on this happiness. Not balancing Islam and work, but balancing things, your entire life, so that you ultimately actually get to happiness. And this is our journey, this is our yearning, and ultimately this yearning is that we walk on the path of the Prophet ﷺ, because it is a trodden path. And this is the amazing thing about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He has already shown us this through the example of the Prophet ﷺ. That you don't have to look for new answers. That if you simply followed him and imitated him, that you will actually come to your end point where you will meet your Lord. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq in that regard. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us felicity, sa'ada, when we meet Him subhanahu wa ta'ala by giving us companionship of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So when we have that as our goal, our end goal, then you will not go wrong. But always remember that happiness and ultimately seeking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is not something small. This is not something small. And something that I have said over and over again, and if I can repeat this over here, that Islam is the Olympics of life. If you think about an Olympian, he spends 5 to 10 years to excel, to become excellent, in order to then go and compete to get gold. And maybe that's the reason why we don't have gold halal in this world per se in that regard. Because the Olympics of life is not 5 to 10 years. It's the entire life. That if you actually trained and practiced the entire life, then you will be the winner. And that winning is that you will have the beatific vision of nothing else actually has beheld. And that is the beatific vision of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is where you will find your felicity, your happiness, and your contentment ultimately. Inshallah ta'ala, that actually helps.
Thank you, Imam, for Thank you, Imam Afroz, for this very clear explanation of how to balance our life with religion, or per se within the religion itself. The second question is a question that I think we received many different type of the same question coming from different perspectives, and therefore we understood that it was something that needed to be addressed. The second question is how one deals with homosexual desires. Would it be to get married, or would it be celibacy, or how should the community respond responsibly to it?
Why do I have to answer the difficult questions? Ya Rab. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina. First and foremost, what to do with the desire? What to do with desire? If I can ask a rhetorical question to make a point. We know that maybe sometimes we desire to jump off the bridge, so to speak. But we know this is not the right thing to do. There is something in ourselves that tells us about this. We may have certain desires, but we know this is not the right thing. This is a very important point to realize, because Islam is here to help us to become the best of humanity, to become the best in what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. So we have to first and foremost know ourselves. Where does desire come from? Where does this come from? We have to understand this. We have to know that in ourselves we have a soul, and this soul has a part which is called the part of desire, which is the shahwaniyah. And we know that we have in ourselves the soul of emotion, which is the ghadabiyah. And we know that we have in ourselves the soul which is called aqaliyah, which is the intellect. And we also know that within desire and within emotion there is good. And if I can give you an example of this. If we did not desire food, then we would die from hunger. And if we did not have the emotion of fear, we could walk into the lands and get eaten by a lion. So there is good in this, but we have to know how to use it. Otherwise, when desire and emotion overtakes us, then we have the problems of, in this case, homosexuality, because it is ultimately only prohibited because it is not good for you. And we have to then understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made things permitted and He has made things prohibited simply because it is good for us. What is prohibited is good for us, not because our Lord somehow is pushing us into oppression. Wa'udhu billah. This is not the nature of our guidance and our ahkam and our rules. The nature of our rules and our guidance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us is built on, is based on that this is good for us. That if you follow with intellect in order to subdue your desire and to subdue your emotion, in order to do the right thing, then it's connected to the previous question that was asked. You will then come to the right path of finding felicity. Because desire, the idea is, desire, the reason why we fall for desire is because we think our happiness lies in it. So sometimes we even desire a lot of chocolate because we think we might actually find a little secret happiness seed in there. But happiness does not exist in chocolate. It will make you obese. So we may think that there is some goodness in such desire, but it will lead you to some serious levels of problems. Something which is not easily discussed because there are sometimes laws to stop you from even talking about facts and objective matters. But I think it's important for us to understand that we now even know from a scientific and medical perspective that this practice is not good for you. We now know how the cigarette companies have been lying to us, and cigarettes is not good for us. It is harming ourselves. And these are the reasons why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed these laws upon us in that regard. That we would ultimately understand the reality of these things by using our intellect. But you see, intellect is not the brain. This is purely a decoder of our senses. We have to enliven our heart. The brain's nourishment comes from our physical food in order for it to fire. But for the heart to fire so that you have intellect, so that you can subdue your desire, comes from dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so we have to know how to deal with these matters if the desire actually exists. And this applies to any desire at all. And I don't want to simply focus on that one particular desire itself. The second point is that we also need to understand meaning rather than the form of our actions. So as a quick point over here, I have been told that people say that homosexuality is the way that they want to experience love. We have to realize that love is not just sex. And I don't want to reduce homosexuality to just sex, although that is predominantly the reason. It's called homosexuality for a reason. But we need to know a difference. There is brotherly love, there is motherly love, there is sisterly love, and there is spousal love. And each one of these kinds of love requires that we respond to that love appropriately, otherwise it's not love. So we can claim whatever we want to in relation to suggesting that this is the way I want to express my love, then we have to recognize that it's not the most correct way. It's not the correct way to do so. Let me give you two examples. The definition of love needs to be understood. And this is what I mean by meaning. And if I can put it in simple terms, love is doing what whom you love loves. Love is doing whom you love loves. Let me give you an example between a husband and a wife, which I use all the time. So those who come to my classes, I apologize for the repeat example. My understanding is that most wives do not like to use the lawnmower to cut the grass. Is anybody here who loves coming? Alhamdulillah, that's good. Because actually, it's hard work, and there's an honor that we want to see our sisters, our mothers, our wives, not to be actually involved in cutting the grass. We should do it, right? Be as it may, the point being is this. Imagine your wife does not like how to cut grass, doesn't want to mow the lawn. But then her birthday comes, and I will put aside whether the birthday is bid'ah or not. I'll let Habib Kadzim to answer that question. But then you buy her a lawnmower. Do you think she will say that you love her? Of course not, because you have not responded to her the way that she expects to love you, that you love her. I'll give you another example. And this is the most important and the ultimately only important example. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us to pray in a particular manner, that we raise our hands to do our takbir, that we go to ruku, that we go to sujood. This is our expression of our love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because He has told us so. So now imagine we say, well, I want to express my love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but I will jump up and down. Actually, that is not an expression of love to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because He does not like that you pray that way. He is not pleased with that. He has given us the constitution of Islam that if you are a Muslim, even if you have a desire to do something else, this is the constitution that allows you to come closer to Him because you claim to love Him. So a person who has desire has to understand this. And if I can give you one more example in that regard, is that you are all here Malaysians, and you have a responsibility to fulfill the constitution of Malaysia as a citizen of Malaysia. Similarly, we are, if I could say, citizens of Islam. And in order to be part of Islam, we need to hold on to and honor, despite our desire to do something else, to the constitution of Islam, which is the Quran and which is the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And lastly, in this regard, is the responsible response from the community. Our responsibility is that we reject the crime, but we do not lead this to rejecting the person. That we have to have sincere concern for those who may fall into things which is displeasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To help them come out of their own oppression. We help the oppressed and we help the oppressor, and sometimes we are an oppressor of ourselves. And so our responsibility is to help people to come out of circumstances which are ultimately going to harm them. They might not see it, but we need to help them. And the last point in this regard, I want to make a point about this, that both sides, those who may have this desire and who are active in this practice, and those who are trying to help, as well as those who may have an agenda to exploit the current situation, to discredit religion, that this is not helping anybody. We have an honor, and we are honored to be Muslims. And to be honored to be as Muslims, we fulfill the covenant that we have with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's our right. And in this world, there should not be people who then discredit us, that somehow this is archaic or backward. Because if that was the case, then we shouldn't have a problem with, say, for example, somebody who wanted to do something really criminal in Malaysia. Because we can then say, it is his right. But you and I know this is not right. That rhymed. That is not right. Because we have responsibilities to ourselves and to the greater society. And so anyone who has desire of anything, that we have to recognize that we do have a responsibility, ultimately for one reason. We want to be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In that is where we will fulfill our true desires. In that way is where we actually will fulfill and attain that happiness that sometimes our emptiness seeks to fulfill through all of these worldly and material and bodily desires. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us.
Thank you, Imam. I think the most important takeaway point here is that we should consult our wives before buying them a birthday gift, isn't it?
Good advice, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Let's move on to the third and last question for Imam Afroz Ali. And this third question is related to a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Islam, being obviously rooted in the word salam, which means peace, is itself a religion of peace. How do we apply the following hadith about the stone? "O Muslim, there is a Jew hiding behind me, so kill him." And this is a paraphrase.
So yet again, why do I get the hard questions? Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. First and foremost, we have to recognize that as per this hadith and all of the other narrations of the noble Prophet ﷺ, has a context in terms of what it's actually applying to. So this hadith is not actually saying that somehow we are supposed to go out there and kill all the Yahud. This is not what the hadith is saying. Secondly, this hadith is applying to a time which is referred to as the end times, at a time when there will be things happening that we today do not understand how they will occur. How does a stone speak? So just like the Quran has mutashabihat, we also have in the hadith mutashabihat that we do not understand, and most likely will only understand when the time actually comes. But what is it that the hadith is pointing to? The hadith is explicitly and specifically actually pointing to a very important fact, that this will be a time when Muslims will be the most oppressed. They are not the ones who are out there looking to kill, but they will be the most oppressed by one of the most violent people, the most tyrannical of people, such that even stones will speak and say, we need to stop this. That even trees and stones will speak out against such an oppressor, such a violent oppressor, that it will in fact highlight to those Muslims who are only interested in making sure that this earth returns to peace. That's what this hadith actually is referring to. That the killing will be so severe that this is not a hadith where Muslims are told to go and hunt down and kill. Actually, Islam never calls to kill. But Islam calls to do whatever is necessary, particularly when you have such violent, aggressive, atrocious, an oppressive time, that a state of taking force will be the only way that we will be able to stop what needs to be stopped. And this is a time that only we will know when these times in fact come to us, and we will have the right leaders, because this is a time when we will be looking towards Imam Mahdi alayhi salam, and so we would know what to do. This is not a call or an obligation or somehow a blanket approval to any and every Muslim or any individual. This is not the case at all. It is a hadith which uses words. It uses words not to actually tell us to kill. It's using words to tell us of the situation we will be in. And I talk about we here, I'm talking about as humanity. And indeed the most oppressed will be Muslims. And this is the time to which the Prophet ﷺ tells that when there will be no knowledge and there will be harj. And the companions were confused. What is this? What is harj? And the Prophet ﷺ said, killing, killing, killing. So our noble Prophet ﷺ of mercy, of compassion, of peace, is simply telling us a time that will come when it will be so grossly oppressive, and that even rocks and trees will speak against the oppression, the oppressor, and those who are hiding in order to kill, not hiding as a victim. And inshallah, that actually helps us to actually understand in this matter. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect all humanity. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala return this world to peace. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring prophetic peace onto this earth, because that is the only peace that allows human beings to flourish. Jazakumullah khairan.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أحمد سبحانه وتعالى حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه على كل حال، وأصلي وأسلم على سيدنا وحبيبنا رسول الله محمد بن عبد الله وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبعه ووالاه.
So he starts by, in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and praising Allah and sending peace and blessings upon His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
وسررت كثيرا باللقاء مع الشيخ إمام في هذه الجلسة المباركة، نسأل الله أن يجعلها في دوائر القبول والنفع.
I'm very happy with this meeting and this jalsa with Sheikh Afroz. May Allah make it a meeting of blessing and benefit.
وحصل الفائدة والانتفاع والاستمتاع بهذه الأجوبة المباركة.
Inshallah ta'ala, there's been benefit and a pleasure in listening to the answers to these questions.
ونسأل الله أن يفتح بها آفاقا لعقولنا وقلوبنا فتترقى في مراقي القرب من المولى سبحانه وتعالى والفهم عن الله وعن رسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم.
And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to open up with it the horizons of our minds and our hearts, so that we inshallah ta'ala may increase in the closeness and proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
نعود إلى سؤالنا عن الصلاة، وهو أولا أن هذه الأفعال التي نحن نقوم بها في الصلاة هي هدية عظيمة من الله سبحانه وتعالى وعطية كبرى من الحق عز وجل لعباده المسلمين، ليست لأحد من أصناف المخلوقات الأخرى.
And we have to understand first and foremost that these actions that we do are a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a present from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that is given to the Muslims specifically, not to anybody else from creation.
حتى الملائكة الكرام العظام لم يجعل المولى سبحانه وتعالى لهم حقيقة هذه الصلاة، فالبعض منهم ركوع فقط والبعض سجود، لكن ليسوا الملائكة يتمتعون بهذا النوع من العبادة الراقي للخالق العظيم الواحد الرحيم سبحانه وتعالى.
Not even the angels have been given this gift, this great gift. Some of the angels may do ruku', some of them may do sujood, but not any of them do this kind of ibadah, the kind of prayers that we as humans have got.
ثانيا من الخسارة الكبيرة والحرمان العظيم أن تكون صلاة الإنسان في هذه الدائرة من القيام والجلوس والقعود والحركات من غير أن يستشعر حقيقة ما خبأه الله سبحانه وتعالى له وسط هذه الصلاة. هذه خسارة كبيرة جدا وحرمان عظيم لا يعبر عنه مقارنة مع ما يحصل للمصلي الحقيقي من تنزلات هذه الصلاة ومن بركات هذه العبادة الراضية لله سبحانه وتعالى.
And it is also important to understand and acknowledge that it's a great loss that to not be able to feel and appreciate whatever Allah subhanahu subhanahu wa ta'ala has put in these actions, in these movements of blessings, of benefit for the human being.
لذلك عندما نرى صلاة النبي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، نرى فعله في الصلاة وكلامه عن الصلاة، نرى شيئا عظيما نحاول نحن أن نرفع أنفسنا ولو إلى أول درجات هذه اللذة والطمأنينة وقرة العين التي تكون للمسلم والمسلمة في الصلاة.
And when we see the Prophet ﷺ and hear of his experience in the prayer, what we want is to reach the lowest level, the closest level to the beginning of what the Prophet ﷺ actually felt. So in the prayer, this should be the goal of every man and woman when doing the prayer.
الصلاة بهيئتها هذه التي نصليها وبعدد هذه الفروض التي نقوم بها نحن المسلمون لله سبحانه وتعالى لم تقع لأمة من الأمم ولا لنبي من الأنبياء. كان كل نبي من الأنبياء له فرض محدد يتعبد الله سبحانه وتعالى به. نحن المسلمون الله جعلنا هذه الصلوات الخمس التي كان الأنبياء يعبدون الله تعالى بها.
So no other nation, no other people have got this prayer that we have got. All prophets had their specific kinds of prayers and specific portion of prayers, but we're the only nation that got this specific 5 times a day to have like many of the prophets had.
لذلك النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول عن هذه الدنيا وكل ما فيها أنه لم يحبب إليه شيء منها أبدا، هو لا يحب شيئا إلا ربه سبحانه وتعالى، ولكن الله سبحانه وتعالى لحكم متعددة جعل الرسول يحب بعض الأشياء من هذه الحياة.
So it is mentioned that nothing is more beloved to the Prophet ﷺ than this, and you should be known that the Prophet ﷺ doesn't love anything else than his Lord. However, for certain wisdom, Allah has made beloved to him some portions of this world, which in the best is the prayer.
فمثلا هذا الحديث الصحيح الذي يقول فيه النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم حبيب إلي من دنياكم وانظر نسب الدنيا إلى الناس، لأنه صلى الله عليه وسلم عاداته وعواطفه كأنها من عالم آخر، هو بشري الظاهر ملكوتي الباطن، فربنا حبب إليه 3 أشياء لحكم عديدة ومنها النكاح. حبيب إلي من دنياكم النكاح أو النساء والطيب هذا متعلق بالروح والعقل، ليس له لذة بالسمع ولا بالبصر ولا باللسان، لكن الجزء الذي نحن نريد أن نصل إليه في السؤال عندما ذكر الصلاة حتى ما جعلها النبي حببت إليه، ذكر أمرا عظيما وقال وجعلت قرة عيني في الصلاة، فقرة عينه في هذه الحياة الصلاة عندما يدخل في الصلاة لله سبحانه وتعالى.
So it is as narrated in the authentic hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, "It has made beloved to me from your world." And here it is interesting to point out that he said from your world, as if the Prophet ﷺ is from a different world, from a different realm. And he is, as what they say, in his appearance, he is human. However, within his inner, he is angelic. And it is interesting here that the Prophet ﷺ said that the most beloved is the getting married, the woman, and having a good smell, perfume, which is something that is good for the intellect and for the inner as well. And the most beloved thing, the eye stone, the most beauty of his eye is the prayer.
ولعلي أعدل قليلا أو أعرج قليلا على المسألة التي ذكرها الشيخ وهي مسألة الشذوذ هذا، وأحب أن أنطلق من هذا الحديث أن هذا أمر مخالف للفطرة تماما، مخالف للفطرة البشرية، بل حتى مخالف للفطرة الحيوانية، لكن الإنسان قد يركب عليه أو يلقى عليه شيء فبحكم عقله قد يتلقاه وهو مخالف لفطرته الباطنية ولمشاعره القلبية.
And here as well I would like to connect to the question about homosexuality that Sheikh Afroz spoke about, and he said that it is interesting to see here that the human being is able to be attracted to something that goes against to their natural disposition, not just against their intellect or against their mind, but even against to the natural disposition.
ويا حبذا في مثل هذه البلد قبل أن يتحول إلى ظاهرة أن تقوم الهيئات المباركة هذه بالتعاون مع الحكومة أو بالتعاون مع العلماء بعمل خطة طويلة الأمد في ما يمكن التحدث فيه في الإعلام، وما يمكن التحدث فيه على الانفراد، وما يمكن أن يعالج بالندوات، وما يمكن أن يعالج بالدعوات كذلك، حتى لا يصير هذا الأمر المخالف للفطرة شيئا حسنا. تصور لو وجدنا جماعة من الناس يعني يتلذذون بأكل الطعام ويشمئزون من أكل الفواكه والعسل، هؤلاء خارج الفطرة، فطرة الإنسان تتلذذ بالمطعومات الطيبة وتنفر من المطعومات المؤذية أو المحرجة. هكذا الإنسان في هذه العلاقة، إذا صار كذلك هو خرج عن فطرته وصار مريضا يحتاج إلى علاج، والعلاج يقول ولي الأمر من الكل قبل أن تستمرئه الناس، قبل أن ترى شيئا حسنا وهو شيئا مضرا وشيئا ممقوتا وأيضا معاقب عليه من قبل الحق الله سبحانه وتعالى، يسخط جل في علاه على من يصر على هذا العمل ويغضب سبحانه وتعالى. فلا بد من انتشال هؤلاء مثل معالجة المرضى تماما، ولا نستعجل العلاج، لا نتوقع أن العلاج مباشرة سيكون في الحال، لا بد أن نأخذ العلاج دفعة دفعة وجرعة جرعة، وننظر ونقوم علاجنا أيضا ماذا وصلنا بعد سنة في حلول هذه المشاكل، لأنه هذا سيخل يعني بتركيب المجتمعات كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم في كثير من الأحاديث.
So here it is important as well to understand that this problem needs to be dealt with on several and different levels in society. Some of the levels need to be dealt with in a private session, and you need to be building up, setting up projects and discussing about how to deal with this before it gets spread too much with the local authority, with government, in private, in groups, in seminars, in sessions, in different. It's important to deal with this issue, and this is as well as issue of an example of this is for a person, for instance, that despises the taste of honey, even though we know that in the natural disposition of a person you like the sweet, you like honey, but now a person suddenly do not like this. And when a person is put in that situation, you need to realize that this is something is wrong here, and you need to deal with it. However, it's important to not hasten as well, not hasten the medication. Take it step after step, so you don't damage more than actually benefiting.
ثم نعود إلى موضوعنا عن الصلاة وكيف يستمتع الإنسان بهذه الصلاة ويتلذذ في هذه الصلاة، ولهذا طرق وأساليب قد ذكرها المربون والصالحون كأمثال الإمام أبي حامد الغزالي وغيره، وقد جربها أناس قبلنا ونجحوا فيها، وصارت الصلاة قرة عين بالنسبة لهم. إذا دخل الواحد صلاته لا يود أن يخرج من الصلاة أبدا، ولكن الشريعة تحكمه فقد تجعله يخرج من الصلاة لسبب من الأسباب. أحيانا النبي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، وكم هذا غريب أن يكون الإنسان في أعلى لذته وفي أعلى استمتاعه بالصلاة، لذة فوق جميع أنواع اللذات المدركة بالحواس، لكن من رحمته العظيمة وهو في هذه المنازلات الكبيرة يسمع بكاء طفل صغير فيخفف الصلاة، يقطع أعظم لذة بالنسبة له، أعظم طمأنينة بالنسبة له صلى الله عليه وسلم. لماذا؟ لبكاء طفل صغير يريد أن تدركه أمه وتذهب إلى أمه. وهذا يعطينا صورة من التوازن الكبير ما بين ما نتلذذ نحن به وما بين ما تلقي علينا عقولنا حتى نمشي على مراد الله سبحانه وتعالى في أرضه.
So we will go back to the question of feeling sweetness in prayer, which is discussed by many of the big scholars like Imam Al-Ghazali and others, that has set up different methods that have been tried to achieve the sweetness of the prayer that the Prophet ﷺ felt in it. Where is a level when he prayed that he would not want to leave the prayer except for a shar'i reason, except for a legal reason. So he would not leave the prayer, and he would only shorten the prayer if there was a need for it. For instance, if a child would cry or another need that is legal was needed, that was the only reason why the Prophet ﷺ would lessen and decrease this joy he felt from the prayer.
وأول أمر نقدر أن نقوم به عدم الاستعجال في الصلاة، لا نستعجل أبدا. وممكن كل واحد وواحدة تجرب هذا العلاج الرباني كما ذكر النبي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. إذا دخلت في الصلاة لا تستعجل، لا تصلي وأنت متخلص من هذه الصلاة، كأن الصلاة عبئا تريد أن تقضيها وتنتهي إلى أمور أنت تظن أنها أولى من الصلاة، ولا يوجد أمر أولى لك من الصلاة أبدا لو عرفت هذا. كل حوائجك وما تتمناه وما تريده الله سبحانه وتعالى سيعطيك إياه ببركة إتقان الصلاة وإحسان الصلاة. حتى لو لم يدعو الإنسان أي دعاء بعد الصلاة ولا في مواطن الإجابة، صلاته الحاضرة الخاشعة والدعوات التي يكلمها الله سبحانه وتعالى داخل الصلاة هي كفيلة أن تقضي له جميع حاجاته وتحقق له جميع أمنياته. فأول شيء عدم الاستعجال. جرب، كل واحد يجرب يصلي من هذه الليلة، يقول يصلي ركعتين صلاة الوتر مثلا، يصلي براغة عدم استعجال، يتدبر المعاني، يفرغ نفسه 10 دقائق يقرأ الفاتحة برفق، ثم في أثناء الأفعال الحضور هذا في الأفعال وعدم الاستعجال في الصلاة شيء عظيم. عندما يهوي إلى السجود، أنت تهوي إلى السجود بهذا برفق، لست مستعجلا، تدرك ما معنى خضوعك في هذه الحالة. عندما ترتفع إلى القيام ارتفع برفق، ليس كالعادة نقوم ونقعد نقوم ونقعد. هذه صورة، والصورة لا تعمل أي شيء. لو أحضرنا الإنسان جائع صورة طعام، صورة الفواكه واللحوم، ماذا هل تشبع هذه الصورة؟ لن تعمل شيء. وصورة الصلاة لا تؤثر في القلب، هي تخرج الإنسان عن دائرة النكران وعدم مقابلة الحق سبحانه وتعالى. لو أحضرنا الإنسان صورة حيوانات، أحضرنا صور الأسد والنمر والحيوانات والسباع، هل ستفزع أحد؟ الصورة لا تفزع أحد. لكن لو حضرت عندنا في هذه القاعة السباع والحيوانات المفترسة كل سيعمل حسابه. كذلك صور العبادات لا تؤثر في القلب، لا ترفع الإنسان، لا تؤدي بركات الصلاة ولا تؤدي آثار الصلاة. أولا لابد من ماذا؟ من التوأدة في الصلاة والسكينة وعدم الاستعجال في أثناء القراءة وعدم الاستعجال في أثناء الأفعال، عندما نركع، عندما نرتفع، عندما نهوي للسجود، حتى يستشعر قلبك. بعد ذلك أنت إذا وظبت، والمسلم إذا وظب على هذا سيستشعر قلبه أنه في عبادة عظيمة. يبدأ يشعر، الآن لا يشعر، مستعجل، يريد أن يصلي ويذهب إلى عمل، يريد أن يصلي ويذهب إلى أي شيء. لا شيء يقدم على الصلاة أبدا. ممكن يقدم على الصلاة الأم، الوالدين، بر الوالدين، هذا كما جاء في الأحاديث أو في الفقهيات، قد يخفف الإنسان في صلاته لأمه أو لوالديه أو للولد الصغير.
So the first step to take for a better prayer is not to hasten in the prayer, to take it easy and pray with care and with presence of heart. We have to understand that nothing is more prioritized than your prayer. Nothing in this world is more important for you than your prayer. Anything else that you prioritize of the worldliness, you will get through the prayer. If you do not do the prayer well, the other things will not come either. You will not find any benefit and success in them. So it's important to do all steps of the salah, all steps of the prayer with care and calmness. So when you recite, when you go down to sujood, you should do it, all of it being in careful state and calm state. And you should have to understand that the mere picture, the mere form of prayer does not benefit you at all. There's no benefit in it. Just as the mere form of food. If you only have a picture of food, will it remove your hunger? It won't give you any benefit. The same thing if you have a picture of a wild animal. Will anybody be scared or affected by the picture of a wild animal? No, you need to have the real substance there as well. So it is important to start and doing salah in a calm and careful manner. Only then, after continuing this, the heart will start feel the greatness of this action. So by taking it easy and trying, and Habib said you should try tonight, when you make salah, make it calm. Do not hasten. Just take every part of the salah in a calm manner, and you will see that the heart will start feel this is a great action. And the only time you can hasten your prayer is, for instance, for the call of your parents or the need of your children or similar.
كذلك الأمر الثاني وهو الحضور أثناء الوضوء. أنت إذا أردت أن تقابل ملك من الملوك أو عظيم من العظماء، كيف ستستعد لمقابلة هذا الشخص ظاهرا وباطنا؟ ستخير أفكارك، لباسك، ماذا ستقول له إذا كانت مكالمة مهمة. نحن في كل يوم ندخل في مقابلة عظيمة مع ملك الملوك سبحانه وتعالى. نهيئ بواطننا ونهيئ ظواهرنا. نهيئ بواطننا بالاستعداد، نفرط ناس والقلب، ناتي غير منشغلين بأي شيء. حتى الفقهاء يقولون إذا أنت منشغل قبل الصلاة بأي شيء اتركه. لو كانت نفسك تتوب إلى الطعام وأنت تدخل إلى الصلاة، خطأ كبير أن تدخل إلى صلاتك وتكلم الله ويطلع الله على قلبك وينظر إلى باطنك وهو ملتفت أنت تريد الطعام. كل طعامك وتعال إلى الصلاة، اقض حاجتك وتعال إلى الصلاة. كذلك إذا أردنا أن نتوضأ، وهذا سر عجيب ومفتاح عجيب من مفاتيح الصلاة، الحضور أثناء الوضوء. عندما تتوضأ أثناء الصلاة لا تتكلم مع أحد، ركز على وضوءك، ائت بالأذكار، اعرف أنك في عبادة في الوضوء قبل ما تدخل الصلاة. هذا يهيئك وباطنيا لأنك تستشعر عظمة الله سبحانه وتعالى، خصوصا مع عدم الاستعجال. بعد ذلك تبدأ تظهر آثار الصلاة تدريجيا. أول بركة من بركات عدم الصلاة عدم الخروج منها. أول بركة تظهر أنك إذا دخلت إلى الصلاة لا تريد أن تتخلص من صلاتك، أن تخلص صلاتك، تريد أن تؤدي صلاة معتدلة كما صلى النبي محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم وكما صلى الصالحون من عباد الله. ثم تظهر بركات الصلاة بهذه اللذة التي ذكرها الأخ في سؤاله، وهي لذة ليست كأي نوع من لذات الدنيا. الطعام له لذة والنوم كذا له لذة كل شيء، لكن هذه لذة أخرى لا تقاس بلذات الدنيا كلها مجتمعة، وهي لذة عظيمة روحية في السجود لله سبحانه وتعالى والركوع. وكل ركن له ذوق داخل القلب وله بركة على المصلي عندما يخاطب ربه سبحانه وتعالى.
So the second step in feeling the sweetness of prayer is to be present of heart when you make your wudu, and you should see it as if you're meeting a king or a president or somebody of high esteem. When we are to meet somebody like that, we will try to purify us, make a dress well, a clean dress, nice dress, and so on. You should remember that 5 times a day you're actually standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and speaking to the King of Kings. So you should try to prepare your inner and your outer by beginning with purification. This is a very important part to be able to feel presence of heart even in the salah after that as well. And you should not speak to anyone in a worldly manner during your wudu. You should instead do your adhkar, do the different dhikr and the adhkar that are narrated from the scholars when you do your wudu. And if you do this and continuously do this, you will start feeling the first blessing. The first blessings of having a present heart in wudu and salah is that you would not like to leave it. You would like to prolong it and stay in it for as long as possible, and then it will continue to the sweetness of salah, a sweetness that is not comparable with the worldly sweetness of fruit and food and similar. It is a sweetness of the heart and the soul that is not comparable with any other sweetness.
كذلك لأجل يعرف الإنسان أنه عندما يصلي من غير حضور ومن غير هذا الذوق هو في غاية سوء الأدب مع الله سبحانه وتعالى. انظروا كيف أخبرنا النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ماذا يحصل لنا وسط الصلاة وماذا يجري بيننا وبين الله عندما نصلي. مثلا في تكبيرة الإحرام، في دعاء الاستفتاح، في قراءة الفاتحة، يقول صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا دخل العبد في صلاته فقال بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أو قال الحمد لله رب العالمين، رد الله سبحانه وتعالى على عبد هذا فيقول حمدني عبدي. فإذا دخل العبد في صلاته وقال الرحمن الرحيم قال الله تعالى مجدني عبدي. فإذا قال مالك يوم الدين قال الله تعالى صدق عبدي أنا مالك يوم الدين. تصوروا من يصلي وهو يستشعر هذا النداء من الله، ومن يصلي كل يوم وهو لا يبالي ماذا يرد عليه ربه سبحانه وتعالى. ربك يقول لك مجدني عبدي حمدني عبدي، وهو يقرأ مستعجلا متخلصا يريد أن ينصرف إلى أي شيء، فتفوته بركة المناجاة، تفوته بركة الخطاب مع الله سبحانه وتعالى. فإذا وصل إلى قوله في الصلاة إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين قال الله تعالى صدق عبدي هذا لي ولعبدي مسأل، فيطلب أول خصلة الهداية، اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم. ثم ينفتح في الصلاة المفاهيم التي تتوارد على الإنسان بمجرد ما يقرأ أنعمت عليهم. انظر كلمة أنعمت، بمجرد القلب الذي يقرأ بالتعظيم والاتباع للنبي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، بمجرد أن تقرأ كلمة أنعمت يظهر في شاشة قلبك الباطنية المنعم عليهم ودرجات المنعم عليهم وأسباب النعمة التي ينعم الله بها عليهم. هذا أنعم عليه بالذكر، وهذا أنعم عليه ببر الوالدين، وهذا أنعم عليه بكذا وكذا، درجات المنعم عليهم. ثم بمجرد أن تقرأ غير المغضوب، مثل ما تعمل بحث في الكمبيوتر تضغط كلمة فتظهر لك مرادفاتها، تظهر مرادفات المغضوب، من الذين غضب عليه ولماذا الله سبحانه وتعالى غضب عليه. لا يغضب الله على الغضب بلا سبب، لماذا غضب الله عليه فيتوقع أسباب الغضب. فأنت في الصلاة ظاهرك أمام الناس وقلبك وباطنك في بركات الصلاة وفي ثمرات الصلاة، وأولها عدم الاستعجال، الرفق عندما يدخل الصلاة، كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم ما كان الرفق في شيء إلا زانه ولا نزع الرفق من شيء إلا شانه. دخلت في الصلاة اقرأ بترتل وبراءة وعدم استعجال.
So we should also understand that it is of very bad adab bad conduct and bad manners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to hasten in salah and to not do it calmly, because we should understand that the prayer is an address as well from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the servant. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Prophet ﷺ explained that when the servant says Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Allah will respond and says, my servant have praised me. And when he says Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim and Malik Yawmiddin, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will respond and say, my servant have ennobled me and my servant have spoken the truth. I am the Lord of the world. And when the servant therefore after that asks for the gift of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be bestowed upon him, the servant will start thinking of all the gifts and the levels of the giving and the levels that these people that have been given the gifts from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reach, and start manifesting the different gifts that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to the servant through just remembering the word of an'amta. For example, you have been gifted. As well, the other words in the Fatiha, when you read, for instance, غَيْرُ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ, except for those that have been cursed, you will start, it is as putting in this word of cursed into a computer search. Substitute starts coming up, synonyms of this word. Who are those that are cursed? Why were they cursed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Start to think about these meanings. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, after saying these, my servant will get whatever he asks for or she asks for. So it is important to realize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing you, and you should be dealing with the prayer accordingly to that.
هذه الأشياء مما تعين الإنسان عندما يعرفها، تعينه على أن يؤدي صلاته بحضور. الصلاة كلها أمور باطنية، ولكنها لم تنكشف إلا للأنبياء أو لمن اتبعه النبي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. كل حركة في الصلاة نعملها هي أثر باطني من آثار العبادة مع الله سبحانه وتعالى. نحن لا نفقهها، ولكن النبي أخبر عنها. مثلا عندما يقوم النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم، عندما يقوم من الركعة إلى الركعة الثالثة، من الركعة الثانية. مثلا عندما يقوم النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في الأحاديث يقوم الرسول كقيام العاجز، وبعضهم يظنها أنها كقيام العاجن. لماذا يقوم ذلك؟ أهل الصلاة أدركوا السر الذين تابعوا الرسول، فوجدوا أنفسهم عندما يقومون من السجود إلى الركعة الثانية أو من السجود إلى الركعة الرابعة ويجدون في قلب عظيم بسبب أنوار السجود، في قلب لا يقدر أن يقوم أبدا. وكذلك كان النبي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. فتعرف طيب هذا الشخص لا يجد أي ثقل، يقوم في صلاته ولم يشعر بأي شيء. أنت حتى التي لا تجد هذا الثقل قلد نبيك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، قم متظاهر بالثقل كما كان النبي يقول صلى الله عليه وسلم. فإنك إذا قلدت نبيك بهذا واتبعته بهذا قد تأتيك رحمة من الله وتشعر بماذا تقوم به أنت داخل الصلاة.
So he says it is very important to understand that even though the salah the prayer is just about inner traits and inner secrets, and these are secrets that are not understood except by the Prophet ﷺ and whoever follows the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. So he says, for instance, it is narrated in a hadith that when the Prophet ﷺ used to rise up from the second rak'ah, the sujood of the second rak'ah or the last one, he would stand up in a very tireful manner, in a very difficult manner, showing that in the sujood there was some weight, that it was a weighty thing, something that affected him very strongly spiritually. Of course, most people won't realize this or feel this. We will just stand up as easily as possible. However, he said you should follow the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ even in that. When you rise up from the sujood, you should rise up as if though you felt this weighty thing. And through following this sunnah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala might actually make you experience it even spiritually.
Apologies, Habib, to cut short, but all the tips and methods that you gave are so sweet. We're afraid that our participants will have a sugar problem very soon, mashallah. Moving to the fifth question, which is somehow a question of great controversy, but Yeah, maybe not really, but I remember when I was a child myself, and a few questions about music. So when I was a child myself, I remember uncles and elders telling me, you shouldn't listen to music because music is actually the Quran of Shaitan. And I believe I'm not the only one who's heard that before. The question is, music is such a beautiful form of art and significantly present in many cultures. All across the world, many continents have different types of music, and sometimes beautiful music that we can't really stop listening to it. What is the acceptable practice of playing musical instruments in regards to Islam?
أولاً هو الموسيقى نحن ننظر إلى ما يصدر عن هذه الآلات الموسيقية. ماذا يصدر عن هذه الآلات الموسيقية؟ تصدر أصوات. صوت هذه الآلة، صوت هذه الآلة، صوت هذه الآلة. الأصوات هذه ننظر أيضاً إلى أثرها على الإنسان. ما هو أثر هذه الآلة والآلة الأخرى والآلة الأخرى على الإنسان؟ ويتبع هذا أيضاً الألحان. عندما يتكلم إنسان بقصيدة وشعر فيأتي لها بلحن، أو حتى هذا الصوت عندما يأتي له بلحن محدد ممكن يضرب على الإنسان من غير أي أثر في قلب الإنسان يتأثر بهذه الضربة. ممكن ينوع الضربة تفعل لها أثر آخر. هذا تغيير حركة الآلات أو تغيير حركة الصوت مثلا، هذا شيء مخلوق لله، وهذا من أسرار الله سبحانه وتعالى. عندما يتأثر الإنسان بهذا الصوت كيف يجلس الإنسان في حديقة ما ويسمع صوت أحد العصافير وهو يغرد أو هو يزلزل، فيؤثر هذا في باطنه بحكم الطبيعة البشرية التي تحب أي حسن وأي جمال خلقه الله في هذا الوجود، تحبه وتميل إليه. فنحن ننظر إلى الموسيقى من عدة زوايا، من ناحية أنها مخلوقة لله، هذا شيء جميل أتلذذ به. ننظر بعد ذلك إلى أثر هذا الشيء الذي أنت تتلذذ به. أنت سمعت نوعا من أنواع الآلات الموسيقية بلحن محدد، انظر إلى أثره عليك، انعكاسه عليك. بعد ما سمعت هذا ماذا شعرت؟ هل شعرت بارتياح؟ أم شعرت هيجت غضبا؟ أم أثر هذا عليك؟ فينظر كثير إلى الآلات، إلى هذه الآلات الموسيقية على حسب أثرها على المستمع لها. ماذا أثرت فيه؟ هل أثرت فيه سلبا؟ أثرت فيه إيجابا؟ هل دفعته؟ مثلا الأصوات تختلف، بعض أصوات الآلات تثير الحماسة مثل أصوات الحرب، آلات الحرب تجعل الإنسان يشعر بالحماسة، بعض الأصوات حزينة جدا.
So, when we speak about music and musical instruments, it is important to ask oneself a couple of questions. The first thing is, what is produced by a musical instrument? It's sounds. Sounds are produced by a musical instrument. So the second question one should ask oneself is, what are the effects of these sounds? And different sounds and different rhythms have different kinds of effects on people. And we have to understand that this change of sounds, playing of sounds, is something that is a part of the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is, for instance, found when you listen to the birds singing. You will find different sounds and different rhythms, and you will find this as something beautiful and beneficial. So the thing that you have to ask yourself is, what are these effects upon you as a human being? Are they positive or negative? Different music have different kinds of effects. You have the music of war, for instance, leading to special kind of feelings. You have music that make you feel sad, and so on.
طيب أي آلة تسمعها أنت وتحدث داخلك أثرا حسنا، انبعاث في الطاعة، رغبة في الخير، حسن خلق، فهذا إذا صوت حسن أنت سمعته ولد فيك أمرا حسنا، إذا لم تكن هناك موانع أخرى في الشرع.
So when you hear an instrument that will lead you to increase your worship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and your good deeds and your well-being, as long as it doesn't go against anything else in Sharia, this will be seen as a good and positive sound that you can listen to.
وكانت الآلات هذه بطرق متنوعة وبألحان غريبة في العصور الأولى للإسلام، حتى كان من غرائب الألحان أنهم يستنزلون الأمطار بالألحان، فإذا طلعت السحب ينشدون الألحان ويعملون بعض الأصوات الآلات أو الموسيقى فتنزل الأمطار بهذه الأصوات، وهذا من أغرب الغرائب.
And this is very strange. It's narrated that before they used to actually, through sounds and through instruments, being able to make clouds rain through different rhythms, different play. it is narrated that they actually could make the clouds rain. So it has a great effect.
أعتقد أنه في زمننا هذا لم يصلوا إلى ما وصل إليه المتقدمون من حسن الأداء للموسيقى وأثرها على الناس.
And I think that maybe in this day they haven't been able to reach that level of effect and level of being able to handle instrument in such a way to affect people in a strong way as they used to.
فذكر المؤرخون أن أحد الموسيقيين الإسلاميين دخل إلى عند أحد الخلفاء وطلب منه أن ينشد له أو أن يستخدم الموسيقى.
So it is narrated as well, one of the Muslim musicians went to one of the khulafa and he was asked to sing for him and play a song for him.
وبعض الألحان تجعل الإنسان حزينا، تجعله يبكي، وبعضها تجعله يفرح ويضحك، وبعضها تجعله ينام مباشرة.
So some rhythms would actually make you put in you sorrow and make you sad and crying. Some would actually make you happy and glad, and some would actually make you go to sleep immediately.
فدخل الموسيقي هذا عند الخليفة وأنشد له بعض الألحان مع وزرائه وحاشيته فإذا هم يبكون.
So this musician went into this Khalifa and his ministers and he started singing, and the whole audience that were there present started crying.
فاستغاثوا الناس وقالوا يكفي ما هذا الناس تبكي كلها، فغيره إلى لحن آخر فإذا هم يتبسمون دليلا ثم يضحكون ثم إذا هم في حالة هستيرية من الضحك حتى الملك يرفع صوتهم.
So they said, please stop doing this. Change to something else. So he started singing a different song, and slowly they started becoming more glad and happy until they were hysterically in laughing after that.
ثم رأوا أن هذا لا يناسب وقار الملك والوزراء، هذا لا يناسب كلهم يضحكون، فغير اللحن بعد ذلك بلحن آخر وأخذوا ينعسون حتى ناموا جميعا فخرج وهم نيام.
So they said, no, this is not fitting as well. We're in the presence of the king and ministers. To laugh in this hysterical way is nothing that is fitting. However, so he changed the rhythm again and he put them all to sleep by one song and he left that place.
فأنا أريد أنه ممكن تكون عندنا موسيقى إسلامية صحيحة تهيج الناس أو تثير فيهم المشاعر الطيبة، المشاعر الحسنة، بدلاً أن تكون موسيقى ضياع للأوقات وغير ذات نفع وليس لها أي أثر إلا ضياع الوقت فقط.
So I think there could be music, Islamic music, according to law, that instills in people good feelings and make good use of their time and not putting to waste their time in listening to bad music where you only waste your time.
بعض الآلات جاء النص من النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في كون المسلم لا يستخدمها ولا يستعملها كالمزمار مثلا أو كالطنبور، ولكن حتى هذه النصوص كانت الأئمة مفاهيم في أثر هذا الصوت على الإنسان، ما هو أثره عليه، هل يهيج عداوة لأحد، كراهية لأحد، بغضة، هل يهيج داخله نوايا طيبة لعمل الخير، ينبعث في أعمال الخير، فيعود الحكم إلى أثر الآلة على الإنسان.
So there are even some ahadith where the Prophet ﷺ used to prohibit specific instruments, like al-mizmar, it's some kind of trumpet, a flute, a special kind of trumpet, flute, something, and another instrument that is mentioned in the hadith. However, he said that the scholars do have interpretations on exactly why these were prohibited, the bad effect they had on people. And this is of course as well connected to the original question of how the instrument affects people.
ونشير أيضا إلى أنه ورد في الأحاديث الصحيحة أنه يوجد غنى في الجنة، فهناك بعض ما جاء في غنى في الجنة والحور العين يغنين في الجنة غنى، لكن ليس طبعا كهذا الغنى في الدنيا.
So it's even indicated in some of the hadith that there will be singing in paradise, that the Hur al-Ain will be singing in paradise. Of course, this is not the same way of singing in this world, a better way.
ومجموع الغناء يتركب من ثلاث خصال، من الآلات ومن الكلام ومن الصوت. الآلات ما هي؟ الكلام الذي يقال أثناء الغناء، ما هو نوع هذا الكلام؟ ثم من الذي يقول هذا الكلام؟ من الذي يتلفظ هذا الكلام؟ هل هو رجل أو هو امرأة؟ وهل هي عند نساء أو غير ذلك؟ فيتركب الحكم من خلال هذه الثلاثة الحيثيات التي تكون فيه.
And the legal point of view, you look upon three things. You look upon the instrument that is used, you look upon the words that are sung, exactly what is said, and the third thing is you look upon who is saying this. Is it a man who's singing, or is it a woman? Is it in front of other men or in front of other women, and so on? These three things are taken into account when you judge upon it from a legal perspective.
Thank you, Habib Kadzim, for this very clear answer, mashallah. And the last, the question for tonight, the sixth question, is about knowledge and scholarship. And in this age of great tribulations and trials, how do we recognize true scholarship and recognize correct sources of knowledge?
هذا كما أشار الإمام أنه آخر الزمان الذي نحن نعيشه، أو ربما تكون المرحلة التي قبل آخر الزمان، والمرحلة التي قبل آخر الزمان تتغير فيها المفاهيم وتتغير فيها المصطلحات، ويرى الحسن قبيح ويرى القبيح حسنا.
So we as Imam Afroz mentioned earlier, we're in that which is considered the last time, or the time before the last time, in which knowledge will be decreasing and understanding of things will be turned. The good will be seen as bad and the bad will be seen as good.
ويصدق الكاذب ويكذب الصادق.
And the one who is lying will be thought as truthful and the truthful will be denied.
ويكون المخرج في آخر الزمان لهذه الأمة بالرجوع إلى القرآن وإلى سنة النبي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ومحبة النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وإلى العلماء المخلصين.
So in this time, the solution is to turn back to the Quran and to the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and loving the love of the Prophet ﷺ, and to the upright scholars.
العلماء الربانيون هم الذين يكونون أمان وضمان للأمة في آخر الزمان.
These godly scholars, God-fearing scholars, are those that will be the caretakers and the watchers over the sacred trust of knowledge.
المقتضيات أيضا آخر الزمان أن تفقد الثقة في العلماء وتفقد أولا الثقة في كلام النبي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم.
And however, it is of the result of this time that people lose trust in the scholars and even lose trust in the words of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
وحتى في كتاب الله سبحانه وتعالى تزعزع ثقة المسلمين في كتاب الله جل في علاه، فإذا سمعوا آية في القرآن لم تتصورها عقولهم ولم تفهمها أذهانهم ربما تجرأ الواحد على أنه يرد هذه الآية أو ينكر هذه الآية.
Even it goes so far that people will be even refusing to accept verses of the Quran because it doesn't fit with what they think and how they imagine things.
وكذلك يتجرأ الناس بعد ذلك على كلام النبي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، خصوصا إذا عارضته الاكتشافات العصرية أو لم تبينه الاكتشافات العصرية فيهتز الإيمان في قلوب ضعفاء الإيمان.
And people are affected if they read some hadith of the Prophet ﷺ which they consider goes against anything scientific or anything that haven't been clarified in modern science.
كان الناس في الزمن الأول يتلقون كلام النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بالقبول التام من غير أي شك، من غير أي ذرة من الشك، كل ما يقوله الرسول حتى وإن لم تفهموا عقولهم.
Before that, in the earlier generations, people would accept whatever the Prophet ﷺ used to say, even though they wouldn't understand or being able to imagine what he said.
لبعد الناس الآن عن نور النبوة وعن عصر النبوة، أظهر الله سبحانه وتعالى هذه المكتشفات العصرية التي تؤيد ما يقوله النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أو تؤيد ما ذكره الله في كتابه.
However, as people come far away from the light of the prophethood and the time of the prophethood, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have through science given support to that which the Prophet ﷺ has said or that which is in the Quran.
مثلا في عدة الستينات ثارت ضجة كبيرة بين علماء الإسلام على حديث مشهور رواه البخاري اسمه حديث الذبابة، وفيه النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول إذا وقع الذباب في ناحيتكم فليغمسه لأن في إحدى جناحيه داء وفي الأخرى دواء. وفي ذلك الزمان اكتشفوا أن الذباب محمل بالجراثيم، وحصل الشك عند بعض الناس، بعضهم يقول هذا لا نقبل الحديث، الآن الذباب أمامنا نراه بالميكروسكوبات كله جراثيم، فكيف نأخذ بهذا الحديث؟ والبعض يقول هذا حديث صحيح كيف نرد كلام الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم؟ ولكنهم يقولون انظروا العلم الحديث يثبت هذا، والبعض يقول نعم هذا حديث صحيح لكنه غير متواتر، قد نتوقف عن هذا لأن الحديث غير متواتر. فانظر إلى حصول الشك عندما يرون شيئا جديدا، واستمرت هذه الضجة. بعد سنوات قليلة تطور العلم وتقدمت الميكروسكوبات واكتشفوا فعلا كما قال النبي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم أن في إحدى جناحيه داء وفي الأخرى دواء. لكن ماذا قد حصل؟ قد حصل شك عند بعض الناس وعلماء في كلام النبي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، وحصلت حدود بين العلماء في الحديث، هذا يقول كذا هذا يقول كذا. ولكن هذا يعطينا صورة عن زعزعة، ممكن تتزعزع الثوابت الذين عند بعض الناس إذا جاء ما يظن أنه أعلى منها، ومثل يعتقدون أن الاكتشافات أعلى من كلام النبي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، وكلام الرسول أعلى من كل شيء، لأن العلم لا يزال في تقدم وفي تطور، وكلام الرسول مأخوذ مصدر عن مصدر لا يقبل الخطأ، ما إن هو إلا وحي يوحى مأخوذ من الحق سبحانه وتعالى.
So an example of this is in the 60s there was the issue of, there is an authentic hadith where the Prophet ﷺ says if a fly falls into your bowl of food or drink, then you should dip the whole fly in, because in one of its wings is a poison and the other wing is the solution or the medicine, the cure for this poison. And in the 60s, when they started with the microscopes and so on, people started discussing this hadith and saying that the fly is filled with bacteria. How can we do this? This hadith is either, it's not authentic, we cannot accept this, it's not mutawatir, so we don't have to act upon it, and so on. And a great discussion started even amongst scholars upon this hadith and how to act according or against it. However, a few years after that, new research was made and they actually came to the conclusion that the hadith was correct medically, scientifically. And this shows that, and this problem comes when you put other things above the words of the Prophet ﷺ. When you should realize that the source for the words of the Prophet ﷺ is wahi. How do you say that in English? Revelation is revelation. It is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is a source that is without doubt. So you cannot put anything above that. Whereas science develops and it changes from year to year, from generation to generation.
لذلك لا تستغرب في آخر الزمان أن يحصل اللبس والاشتباه عند عوام المسلمين ما بين العلماء الربانيين أو ما بين العلماء المترسمين، ولكن لا تخفى العلامات. فالعالم الرباني لا يأمر إنسان بقطيعة أحد، العالم الرباني لا يأمر إنسان بأن يسب أحد، العالم الرباني لا يأمر إنسان أن يتلطخ بدم أحد أبدا، العالم الرباني لا يأمر إنسان بعقوق والديه. هناك ثوابت بسيطة تعرفها العالم الرباني من العالم الذي استهواه الشيطان والعياذ بالله.
So it is a good way of recognizing and seeing the difference between a scholar that is God-fearing, that is representing true Islam, is that this scholar will never command you going against your parents, will never command you killing anyone, never command you to do any evil against anyone, command you to do any misdoing against anyone. A good scholar would never do that. Whereas scholars that follow their hawa or they follow the devil, they might do this.
فكذلك آثار العلم النافع الحقيقي، العلم بجلال الله. ما هو العلم النافع الحقيقي؟ أن يكشف الله قلبك أيها الإنسان العلم بجلال الله سبحانه وتعالى وكبريائه وعظمته سبحانه وتعالى واستغناه عن كل ما سواه سبحانه وتعالى، فيثمر لهذا الإنسان كما أثمر للنبي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم رحمة بعباد الله، رغبة في نشر الخير، قلبه ملآن بالشفقة والرحمة على عباد الله من المسلمين ومن غير المسلمين. هذه أثر العلم النافع. لكن انظر إلى أثر العلم غير النافع. أثر العلم غير النافع يولد البغي كما حصل في علماء بني إسرائيل، يولد العداوة، يولد الكبر لأنه ليس نافعا. العلم مع الذكر يولد الانكسار بعظمة الله والخوف من الله، كما قال سبحانه وتعالى إنما يخشى الله من عباده العلماء.
So you should know that beneficial knowledge which you get from the God-fearing scholars is a knowledge that will increase in you mercy. Mercy towards Muslims, mercy towards non-Muslims, mercy towards all. It does not beneficial knowledge will not lead you to hatefulness and animosity towards others. Knowledge that you achieve through the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will increase you in the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As is said in the Quran, only those with real knowledge fear Allah.
العلماء الربانيون تنتفع بحالهم قبل أن تنتفع بمقالهم، وتنتفع بلحظهم قبل أن تنتفع بلفظهم، كما قال الإمام ابن عطاء الله السكندري رحمه الله: من لم يغنيك لحظه لم يغنيك لفظه. فالعالم الرباني من قابله تأثر بسلوكه وخلقه وباطنه المعمور بالخوف من الله والمحبة للنبي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، فتسري بركات العلماء الربانيين لمجالسيهم وأن لم يتكلموا. هذا العالم الرباني الذي يحرك الخير داخل هذه الأمة.
So, a God-fearing scholar, a godly scholar will be a person that will affect people with their states before they even speak. There will be scholars that do affect and make people change even without speaking. Just by showing themselves, being in their presence, people will be affected. Just like is mentioned by the scholar Ibn Ata'illah in his aphorisms. He said, the one who will not give you enough with their sight, with their care, they will not give you enough with their spoken word either. So this is a true scholar will be able to affect you even without even speaking.
العالم الرباني كذلك ينهضك للعبادة والطاعة. كان أحد التابعين يقول: إذا شعرت بفتور في العبادة والطاعة فأذهب أنظر إلى وجه محمد بن واسع، وهو أحد التابعين الأكابر يسمى قارئ الرحمن. قال: بمجرد أن أنظر إلى وجهه أنشط في العبادة أسبوعا كاملا، فإذا شعرت بفتور أعود أنظر إليه فقط، لا يكلمني ولا أكلمه، أنظر إلى وجهه فأنشط في العبادة والطاعة.
And the scholar, it is mentioned, for instance, that a true scholar should make you more eager to worship, more eager to servitude. It is mentioned that one of the predecessors used to go to Muhammad ibn Wasi', one of the scholars of the Tabi'een, and when he would feel laxity in prayer and tiredness in prayer, he would go and just look upon him once, and then after that be able to pray and do good actions in a whole week, just because of him looking upon that shaykh. And these scholars will be still here with us to the last hour, even if they are less, even if they are hidden, because they will be busy with their Lord and with that which is more important than that. And these scholars will not compete with anyone upon anything. They would not need anything of the worldly or strive to get anything of the worldly. They will lead that to its people. And they have just one purpose, and that's making people love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and showing them the great and enormous mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that encompass everyone. To make them come closer to the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with all the mistakes and bad things that is within them. And generally they will have ease. They would like to make it easy to people when they give fatwa. They don't want to put people in hardship.
إذا نظرنا إلى الجانب الآخر نجدهم عكس ذلك، دعاء على أبواب جهنم والعياذ بالله، يدعون الناس إلى النار وهم يتسمون بالغلظة والقسوة والفظاظة، وهذه ليست صفات النبي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ولا أحباب النبي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم.
So if you see the opposite kind of scholars, they will be scholars of strictness and hardship and hate, and these are not the traits of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم and not the traits of people who love the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم.
وإذا اشتبه الأمر على الإنسان فيدعو ربه سبحانه وتعالى بصدق، فالله قريب سبحانه وتعالى، هو كريم فيدرك عبده مباشرة، فقط يلح على الله جل في علاه.
And if you are confused and if you are in a state of confusion concerning to someone, make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah is close and Allah will respond.
نسأل الله أن يحفظ هذه الأمة وخصوصا في هذه المرحلة، مرحلة التغيرات.
And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to preserve and take care of this ummah, especially in this ummah of change and difficulties.
وابتعادها عن الثوابت.
And where it comes far away from that which is fixed in the religion.
ممكن أن يختلف الناس لكن لا يمكن أن يتباغضوا ويتكارهوا.
Maybe people can have difference of opinion, but they should not hate each other and have animosity against each other.
المؤمن لا يبغض أحد أبدا، المؤمن ألوف يحب الناس حتى ومن كان مقصرا تمنى له الخير من قلبه وأن لم يصرح هذا بلسانه.
A believer should not have animosity and hate towards anyone. He should be loving and wanting the best for everyone. And even though you do not spell that out, you should feel that within you.
نسأل الله أن يجعلنا وإياكم كذلك إن شاء الله.
We ask Allah to make us and you from that.
وأن ينشر هذا النور والرحمة المحمدية في هذه البشرية.
And make the spread and this mercy spread amongst this.
وأن يجعلنا وإياكم كلنا أسبابا لنشر هذه الرحمة وهذا النور النبوي في هذا الوجود.
And make us and you of means to spread this light of the Prophet ﷺ amongst his people.
Thank you, Habib Kadzim. Here again, the takeaway is that I think true scholarship and correct knowledge has nothing to do with Sheikh Google and Mufti Wikipedia. So maybe we should, stay away from those two sources of knowledge. Before we end the event or the majlis, we would like to invite Ustad Huzair to sing a qasida.
اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه وعلى آله. أشرق البدر علينا، أشرق البدر علينا، واختفى بدر تمام، واختفى بدر التمام، مثل حزن ما رأينا، مثل حزن ما رأينا في العراقين والشام، في العراقين والشام. ربي فاجعل مجتمعنا، ربي فاجعل مجتمعنا غاية حسن الختام، غاية حسن الختام. واعطنا ما قد سألنا، واعطنا ما قد سألنا من عطاياك الجسام، من عطاياك الجسام. واكرم الأرواح منا، واكرم المختار عنا وابلغ المختار عنا من صلاة وسلام من صلاة وسلام أشرق البدر علينا أشرق البدر علينا واختفى بدر التمام واختفى بدر التمام والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Thank you, Ustad Kadzim, for this beautiful qasida. Thank you for supporting us all the time and supporting Piecemeal, and devoted so much of his time, mashallah, to us and to obviously helping us grow, mashallah, alhamdulillah. I would like, on behalf of both organizations, Piecemeal and Seggaf Global, thank our dear scholars and teachers, Habib Kadzim, Imam Afroz Ali, and Sheikh Salahuddin Barakat from Sweden, who have been, very kind to come here for our event and speak on matters that obviously, touch all of us in this in this age and time, and especially the youth. And that's why, we obviously try as much as we can to cater those events for youth. And we would like as well, on behalf of all the volunteers and the committee and all the people who came together to organize this event, thank all of you participants for coming, and we hope that you will continue to obviously support us, support our organizations, and we hope that you benefit from whatever we provide to you, inshallah. And few announcements that I would like to make before we end. And the first one is that this weekend, inshallah, there will be a 2-day workshop, and there's still some seats left on the Eventbrite page. So you can just go on www.piecemeal.my, and the workshop is called Know Yourself to Know God, and it will be taught by Imam Afroz Ali, who is sitting here. That will be in Yayasan Restu, inshallah. You can have all the details on the website. There's still some seats available, and registration will be closed tomorrow afternoon, inshallah. The second announcement is that we run a monthly class with Habib Abdurrahman al-Haddad, who is present here in this gathering, and may Allah bless him and sanctify his soul. We have this class based on the book of assistance of Imam Abdullah bin Alawi al-Haddad, that is taught every second Tuesday of the month in Bangsa Shopping Centre, Surau, at the 4th floor. Every second Tuesday of the month, Bangsa Shopping Centre, Surau, 4th floor. And the third thing that I would like obviously to extend to all of you is that please follow us on social media. They're available on the banners and the buntings for both Seggaf Global and Piecemeal. Support us through whatever you can, even if it's just a retweet on Twitter or just sharing a post that you like on our Facebook. That's more than enough. And please help yourself. There are books outside. Those books are come from some of the greatest scholars of this time, and they're available for sale. And the sale obviously support the fact that we can provide and make events available to you, to the youth everywhere, in the Klang Valley. And I would like to send my regards to obviously the Habaib who are present tonight, and to our scholars. And I will ask all of you to make dua for them, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep them in a healthy living, to keep them always close to us, close to our hearts, because they're the people who brought this light to our heart, to our face, mashallah, beautiful gathering full of nur. And may Allah keep them to come to Malaysia more often so that we can benefit from them. And may Allah make their family people who can hold on all the time, and may Allah keep the prophetic lineage in this region, in Malaysia, to continue until the end of time. And I would like all of you on this intention to recite Al-Fatiha. Thank you very much. Have a good night. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
راحي كريم عظيم عليم حليم حكيم متين منان رحمن فتاح غفار تواب رزاق شهيد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد يا مسلمين صلوا عليه اللهم صل على محمد وصح محمد يا مؤمنين صلوا عليه لطيف خبير سميع بصير جليل رقيب مجيب غفور شكور ودود قيوم رؤوف صبور مجيد يا لطيف ألطف بنا يا لطيف ألطف بنا ألطف بنا